Hi, everybody. And it is day 15. And this charming gentleman, who many of you may not know, but I'm sure some of you have seen, is Tim Wolter. And Tim lives in a far off, strange country called Yorkshire. It's actually a very beautiful part, and he lives in northern England. And he's a house healer and all that good stuff. And I'm going to open up with the stone, then we'll come over and talk about what Tim does. So if y'all been watching this, you'll know what's going on. If you don't, if you haven't watched, just follow. It's easy. Okay, we're going to open day 15, which is here. And the Earth Mother. We are thankful to our Mother, the Earth, that she gives us what we need for life. She supports our feet as we walk upon her and gives us the joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the beginning of time. To our Mother Earth, we send greetings and thanks. And then the crystal Mother Earth has left us with today is, and it's actually not a crystal, it's a stone. It's Lapis Lazuli, and sometimes known just as lapis. It's a dark blue stone. It has little gold flecks in it that it teams up with iron and pyrite and things. It's a wonderful stone. It's a metamorphic stone, and it um, lapis is known. Lapis lazuli is normally, they call it lapis. It's a blue metamorphic rock that has been used by people as a gemstone, sculpting material, pigment, ornamental material for thousands of years. This stuff comes out of Egyptian tombs. I mean, this stuff's been here a while. High quality lapis can be as costly as a gem, even though it's a metamorphic rock. And what a metamorphic rock is it starts out as a simple stone, and then other minerals and things run into it, and heat and pressure and time kind of bake it, and they make it a hard little thing. And it's hard. It's very hard. It often can contain gold pyrite. Unlike other gemstones, lapis is not a mineral. Instead, it's a rock. The blue color of the lapis is derived mainly from lazurite, a blue silicate material that's in sodalite. It's the same blue that makes sodalite, and it can be all shades of blue. And it facilitates spiritual journeying while harmonizing the body, emotions, mind, and spirit and soul for deeper self-knowledge. Among Lapis's benefits is that it teaches the value of active listening and helps confront the truth. The product of your learning, it's the product of your learning process. It's kind of the stone equivalent of that. Lapis's spiritual significance stems from the deep celestial blue color, often speckled with gold, resembling the night sky shimmering stars. It was revered as a symbol of royalty, honor, and spiritual enlightenment. And it's just a really cool stone. Who should not wear lapis? Usually, Tim, we come from it. This stone is good for, but these are people who need to watch out because of the incredible spiritual, not grounding nature of lapis. People with high stress and anxiety, people with strong Mars or Saturn influences in your astrology, go get your chart made. People with people who seeking grounding rather than spiritual growth. And right now, I know it feels like we're flying at 1,000 miles an hour. This is probably not the stone you want to hang on to if you want to slow it down. This is going to speed it up. Individuals prone to migraines or headaches, people who are emotionally sensitive. And that doesn't mean it's bad for you, but it just means it so heightens your sensitivity, it may heighten it beyond what you meant to have happen. And in the zodiac, the sign that is most aligned with Lapis is Leo the Lion. All the power and energy and standing in the golden sun that Leo does. So now we're going to come over and you're going to meet Tim and find out he's a person of focus and lioness. You were a photographer and you were a cinematographer.
I was a filmmaker, yeah, a sort of video maker, yeah, that sort of thing, yeah, yeah. I enjoy photography still and videoing and that sort of thing, yeah. I mean, I really love getting some images of the natural world. It's just beautiful. I just love it because he's just exploring something with the lens, so it's great.
Hmm. You came to the spiritual world through, maybe I'm mistaken, correct me if I am, but through getting interested in Hamish Miller.
It actually was. He came along slightly after I got drawn in because
Hmm.
what we did. My wife and I moved house. We moved from the southeast of England, which still is very very busy, very crowded. Not really my cup of tea. We moved house way back in 1998 over to the Welsh borders, which is right the opposite end of the country if you kind of go
Hmm.
diagonally from the southeast. Now, moving into that house, we met a disincarnate being, a lady that we labelled as a ghost at the time because
Hmm.
neither my wife nor I had any kind of idea about the spiritual existence around us. But it was meeting that guardian energy, as she turned out to be.
Hmm.
So, as a guardian of the site, meeting her really changed things. And as I was telling my direct family really about that experience,
Hmm.
one of them, my aunt, sent me a book which was The Sun and the Serpent by Hamish Miller.
Hmm.
And that's where Hamish came into it all.
Ah.
Because, yeah, somebody says, you should read this,
Hmm.
which indeed I did. And then I had the honor, absolute pleasure of meeting him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a lot of work, initial work with ley lines and earth energies. And Hamish is no longer with us. Hamish, is it
That
Hamish?
Hamish, yeah.
Hamish.
Hamish.
Hamish is no longer with us, but he has some marvelous books. And I keep telling people if they can find it, there's an out of print book he wrote for children about ley lines, but it's perfect for adults because you don't have to try too hard.
Yeah, there's the Wee Book of Dowsing. That's one of the classics.
Hmm.
Very simple introduction to dowsing. There's also a book called It's Not Too Late, which was some of his feelings about the way that the world was going at the time, which was
He died in the early 2000s, guys. We're
he
behind.
died he passed away in 2010,
Hmm.
January 2010, but not to be at all missing out on anything because he still pops in
Hmm.
all the time, not only with me but with other people. Anybody that's dousing earth energy is going to find a very cheerful energy, probably with his dowsing rod as well, accompanying the dowser as they're
He's
exploring a sacred site.
he kind of has that perfect look for Christmas.
He does, yes, he does. He does look exactly like Father Christmas. Yeah.
So you progressed from working in cinematography and doing all that stuff, and then you went into house healing. And people ask me about that all the time, and I'm like, go look at his channel.
Yeah, I mean, it was I have to say, it's a long, slow process of, well, I mean, life is a process of development. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's interesting that that came up with the Lapis. It's that self-knowledge, that seeking of the truth
Mm-hmm.
and the spiritual journeying. And really, my I was drawn to the ley lines, to earth energy, and to want to do more work with Hamish Miller, and I was on a daily basis discussing the disincarnate world with
Mm-hmm.
Jane, as we came to call her, the guardian energy in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that became all consuming, and I just completely lost interest gradually over the time with the corporate world because I was involved in the corporate world and conferences and things more than the glamorous world of the sort of filmmaking in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So my life just kind of took this amazing rebalancing process over a number of years, and I have to say it wasn't something that I took to. I didn't kind of say, spirituality, this is what it's all about. This is my life now. Boom, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that at all. In fact, I found at the early days, if it hadn't have been for a fella that I'd met, met just accidentally, you meet these people, but
Mm-hmm.
he came into my life. And if it hadn't been for him, I would have wandered back off the path and not taken up any of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
really in the depth that I have done. So yeah, so it wasn't like a kind of a road to Damascus event, but the house healing. The thing about it was, and Hamish touched on this right from the start, because he had been involved in something called Fountain International. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Fountain International was set up by a chap called Colin Bloy in the early 80s, I think it was. And this would have been around the time that Hamish would have been pursuing his, the earth energy lines across the south of
Mm-hmm.
England, doing all that research. Now, what Colin Bloy started doing was basically focusing, gathering a little group of people, going to a town that needed help, needed its energy
Mm-hmm.
raising, and basically focusing on the Hara, the power center of that town, and focusing it with, focused intent of love and compassion, and watch what happens to the society, to the people living in that town.
Mm-hmm.
So he started at Brighton, and that's why it got called Fountain International, because there's a major centre there. The Hara was at the fountain. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the thing was, that to me was fascinating. It just instantly was like, that's at the time in the late 1990s. I was just like, that's ridiculous. How can that, what's that about?
Mm-hmm.
And through the conversations with Hamish and through more research and just the experiences with talking with Jane, I began to realize how the mind, as we know, how the
Mm-hmm.
mind and then how it links into spirit, how that can absolutely affect the physical world in which we live. So there was a day after Hamish had passed away, there was a day where I was walking through the village in which we lived, and we lived in that house for 15 years or so. So it wasn't like a overnight thing. We were there 15 years, and Jane was there with us for most of that time. And I was walking through the village, and there was a pub in the centre of the village. It was a very obvious building because it was a small village on a main road, so it's quite a busy thoroughfare. But this pub was like it was quite a pleasant pub, but it
Mm-hmm.
changed landlords quite a lot, and it was going through a patch where there was nobody occupying it. So basically, what had happened was that somebody, the brewery, had come along and put steel shutters up over the windows. So this building became, it was an eyesore in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
village. And I just walked past it and I thought, well, Fountain International. So let's just send some love to that pub and
Mm-hmm.
see what happens, because we don't want it like that. It was like
Mm-hmm.
really low energy. And literally a week later, people came along, took all the shutters down, and somebody moved in. I thought, well, that's a coincidence. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that really was what got me starting. So I thought, yeah, there's more to that than just the coincidence.
Right.
And that's what started it all, really, in that sense, in the sense of house healing. But what we do is we literally are dowsing. We have a floor plan. We can douse a property anywhere in the world. We ask upstairs to give us information about that property in order to help the people living in it, or it can be a place of work. And then we tune in and allow upstairs the management, the higher beings, to affect the subtle energy of that space and to therefore bring about change if it's appropriate and
Mm-hmm.
relevant for that person. And there are those sort of caveats inevitably come into healing of any kind, as you'll know.
Right.
But that's the basic process. It is literally look for what's there, sit and just be observant. Use dowsing. That's what I still use, and then invite the management to do their bit, and you kind of act as part of the team and the point of observation in that process.
Yep. Well, for those of you who are not used to Tim's explanation, the management is the people upstairs. It's a very good way for, because we have a lot of, you don't have nearly the number of evangelicals in England. Although I did stay at a bed and breakfast that was run by a couple, it was, and they tried to let in on me, and I'd been raised in it. And I said, no, that's fine. You believe what you want to believe,
Yeah,
leave me alone.
yeah.
Um, but so that's another nice way to say how we hand it over to the angels, archangels, and elementals, and because I work more with elementals, and
Well, of
other
course.
people work with angels, and
Yeah.
but so that's kind of how we ended up here today. I contacted Tim about house healing, and he came and did a show on my shows about house healing. And below this show, there will be, Tim sent me a lovely autobiography of him, and it will be all included there because they gave me 1,000 words I could stick on the end. And it's Tim's delightful. Where he lives is gorgeous. If you go visit his channel, you'll get to see York. I have family by marriage up in York,
Right.
and they worked in the mines and the coal mines till all that went sideways.
Mm.
And I spent a week in York in a weaver's cottage. It looked like a little clump of dirt someone had thrown up on the hill and it just squashed in there. And my sister-in-law, and I remember my husband was 20 years older than I was. He was the baby of his family. So all these people were 30 and 40 years older than I am. She was she was from the family of the wise old women in that village. And they lived against this sort of primordial forest, and was during springtime when I was there. And she said, "Come out with me while I harvest." And she had the whole basket under her arm and was collecting things. And I had a bronchitis thing, and she brewed
Mm.
something up and she said, "Drink half of this tonight and drink the other half in the morning and you'll be fine." And I'm not a person who gets bronchitis lightly. I get bronchitis like for long. And I thought, God, my whole trip in England, I'm going to feel miserable. Drank it, woke up the next day, felt peculiarly better. Drank the rest of it, never needed to touch another thing. It was completely gone. I mean,
Wow.
when they kept running around trying to wipe out the wishes, they were wiping out the best farmer we had ever.
Oh yeah.
And I always think of York with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. So York is the town, and Yorkshire is a massive
Yeah,
area
and they
of
lived
yeah.
in a little place called Huddleston, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Or Hudswell.
Maybe it's a tiny. It's to me it looked like a dot in the road, but I wasn't driving,
Yeah.
and I wasn't driving because they drive on the wrong side of the road over there.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of our roads, actually, there isn't enough room to get either side.
Oh,
It's just right down
yeah,
the.
the road that went in front of Wattie's house was, and they had this little place they'd carved out at the bottom that if you had a car of any size, it was not going to be off the road.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's wonderful. If you can ever get to England, it's everything you thought it was, and a whole lot you didn't. If you stay in London, it's going to be like, this looks like Chicago, this looks like New York.
Yeah, in fact, I bumped into a fella that was from Australia visiting one of the locals here. They
Hmm.
were out for a walk. This was last summer, and he said, "Yeah, we flew over and we landed in Heathrow, and
Hmm.
we'd spent a few days in London." And he said, "I said to my wife, if this is England, I'm not so sure about this." And then they came up to Yorkshire, and it was like, "No, this is better. This is
Oh,
much better."
the countryside is beautiful, and I think of all the cities I was in England, the one I liked the best was York. It looked, I was like, okay, now I feel like what I saw in the books.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's areas of York that are very Harry Potterish. It's that
Well,
sort
they've
of
made them more so. I understand. And the other part about I was hesitant to go to England because I'd gone when I was 17 and ran into a ghost in a haunted hotel.
oh yeah,
And he took a focus on me and he was trying to get me to fly down that elevator shaft. So, that leaves you with a personal
yeah,
trepidation. But actually, the whole time I was there, I'd had a friend who'd worked with me and I carried some stones, and I never ran into anybody that wasn't in their own body.
good. It's interesting how a lot of people do actually have their first sort of spiritual experience in that sort of way. They encounter something that actually freaks them out. And that can create quite a lot of fear, and that can create that they'll put the guards up and block everything out. Again, it comes back to the Lapis, doesn't it, about
Mhm.
self-knowledge and
Which way you
that
want to go.
spiritual
What happened
journey.
was I'd always known I was a sensitive. And
Right.
so running into a ghost, but when I came back to the States, I lived outside Chicago. I went in to a parapsychological institute in Chicago, and they tested me and they said, you can do anything. And I was
Right.
17. And
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to deal with ghosts. And they said, you don't have to. And they taught me early on that just because a spirit shows up on your doorstep, you don't got to accept it. And that has really helped me stay open. And I remember I had all these friends, oh, we're going to go ghost hunting over here. I said, fine.
Yeah.
So,
But
I mean, because for me, it's like the old zoos where the animals were in zoos and they were behind bars. And And it's not nice. It's not fair to
No,
that soul. It's not fair to
no,
yours.
no. And I mean, the point is that the consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
we emanate from the. Okay, I'm going to go straight into the the quantum field of infinite possibility. So we can
Yes.
talk about and clarify that a little bit more. But
Mm-hmm.
consciousness basically is a part of this whole mix of everything, and matter is made from the quantum field of infinite
Right.
possibility. So, as we are formed and our conscious awareness comes up there, and kind of like a mushroom coming out of the firmament, if
Mm-hmm.
we could use that expression. Now, the thing is that any aspect of this that we are in can be present as a person
Mm-hmm.
because that's what it's built from.
Mm-hmm.
We're as human beings, we're aspects of the earth in the sense of we are mobile aspects of the
Mm-hmm.
earth. I know we say we're made from star stuff and all of that, which we are, of course, but we are focused around earth and therefore we're made of the earth. And to a certain extent, we are mobile bits of Mother Earth,
Mm-hmm.
wandering around, exploring, trying to figure out what's going on. And in the realm that ghosts, spirits, souls, all of that stuff is, it's just literally just there, just slightly off kilter to what our vibration is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everywhere. So you can douse, when we're looking into house healing, we can douse properties that are not troubled by ghosts or poltergeists or any of
Mm-hmm.
that, but they will show up as having detrimental spirit energy in them, even if the owners aren't aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
because of the nature of consciousness. It is
Mm-hmm.
the possibility for people is absolutely everywhere, whether it be in the carnate form or in
Mm-hmm.
the incarnate form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I always think that spirits on that side are a little like they're on the other side of a frosted glass window.
Yeah, yeah.
They're, and it's because we can't see the light that they live in. I've been told that some of the stuff I've seen and done is 5D, and
Mm,
I have spoken to disincarnate spirits. I was doing readings and this young woman showed up. She was from California, had nothing to do with Texas, and her mother showed up, and her mother had been a tarot reader.
mm,
And my guide said, her mother's here. And I said, what? And so I said, okay. And she spoke through my guide, Addie. And she said, would she give this message to my daughter? And Addie was telling me the message in my head. And I'm sure the young woman from California thought, this woman's even spacier than anything I've ever met before. And finally I said, your mother's here and she wants to speak to you, but she wants your permission to do it. And I won't say it unless you say it's okay. And she said, yeah, tell me what you're hearing. And I think it was more like, yeah, sure, my mom's here.
right.
And her mother wanted her to know that the reason she died when the girl was so young was her mother was an overwhelming energy.
Mm,
And if she had stayed because of the child that had come in to be born to her, she would have ruined her.
mm.
She would have tried to become a little mom.
Completely
And the
different
girl
life, yeah.
burst into tears. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, that's the weirdest thing I've ever said to anybody. And she said, no, her aunt, who she had not known until she was like 18 years old, she never knew her mother's sister. Her aunt had told her just a couple weeks before, I think one of the reasons your mom left so early was she was such a strong character. Her mother had her late in life, so her mother was in her
Yeah,
40s.
right.
She said she would have dominated you and you could never have been your own self. And I said, well, then that all matched. And her mom said to tell the girl that she's there anytime the girl wishes to talk to her. She just has to ask and the mother will respond. And she said, and so I said, well, now what are you doing for the rest of the time? She booked a week to stay in Dallas. She said, I'm going back to California. She'd only been there 48 hours. She said, I'm going back home because I now know what I need to do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, lovely. Yeah,
So
fantastic.
those kind of encounters, they're not scary, all woo woo. And obviously, mom wasn't going to throw me down an elevator shaft. But, and the guy he was mean. He died in a hotel
Yeah,
in World War II. And he
yeah.
really, they weren't even supposed to rent out the room. They'd rent it out to some kids that were on the choir team with him.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, got you.
And
Yeah,
he
yeah,
and
yeah.
the police actually moved me from the building.
Oh, really?
they took me to another building that was adjacent, and the one policewoman who was with him said, "How long have you been a medium?" And at the time, I was 5'3" and 115 pounds, and I said, "No, I'm a small." And she said, "Oh, there's a lot you have to learn."
Excellent. Yeah, yeah. I think I mean, you'll be aware that like everybody is waking up. It
Mhm.
seems like everybody is. I mean, I don't know what percentage of the world's population is really doing it, but a lot of people are waking up, and
Oh, we're
I
waking
think
up over here big time.
I think yeah. Well, everywhere, and it's different. It's manifesting in different ways, isn't it? With
Hmm.
the challenges that people are facing. I think the thing that we all, it's a good time of year to be thinking about it, I guess, or feeling our way into it. No matter where we are on our spiritual path, there's we each. Before we started recording, you were talking about how time, you feel like you're the center of time and you can move around.
I'm in a bubble of time,
Any
and
bubble, yeah,
other
the
people's
bubble.
time bubbles into mine.
That's
Yeah.
the expression that you use, the bubble and the bubble. And this is what I've always said about literally our individual realities.
Hmm.
So in all senses, and time is part of that, is that we each inhabit our literally our own universe because right now, you and I are doing
Hmm.
that whole bubble thing of sharing at the resonant level that we
Hmm.
share and can share at. And that's what happens. Whereas we meet others and we exchange and we become aware of others, and to
Hmm.
a certain extent, that's the reflection of the self. But this is the time of year, really, where we might hopefully have time to reflect on that and
Hmm.
everything that we have and everything that we encounter on all levels, whether it be the manifest form or on the spiritual level, because it's all reflecting and it's all saying something about ourselves, but it is completely and utterly 100% unique to ourselves and appropriate to us at any given time.
Hmm.
And I think that is the essence of all spiritual pathways and
Hmm.
exploring of the knowledge is to understand the relevance of everything as you experience it, as a person experiences it, no matter
Hmm.
what vibration it comes in at. What does that mean to me? And that's not an ego-centered thing, because obviously you learn that the ego is kind of like, yeah, okay, well, the ego's here along for the ride or helping the spiritual aspect develop the journey, but the ego isn't necessarily the viewpoint that we want to be looking at everything from. And we do inevitably see most of life from ego's perspective, whether we
I
like it
know.
or not. And so, if we can master the ability to actually separate out and look at it from the bigger picture, but still maintaining the uniqueness of the experience, then we're a step closer to being able to be that rather powerful and unique observer, that point of observation for the conscious cosmos, which is what we are.
Which
Sorry, you know how I dive in and just
Oh
go into
no, I mean
this.
no, and I totally appreciate it because I like that, people cut it off and they kind of leave people, where are we going next? Well, you're going to go next where you allow yourself to go. That's the other thing, is you do have control over all this. And like I said, Tim helped me, motivated me to build the grid for the world, and we built it 3 years ago. And when I picked it up today to show it to Tim, I realized that the fluorite that's in the middle is splitting apart, and it's not been knocked or anything. It's been sitting on the same little shelf. So I'm going to have to watch that, because we know the world is changing and we know things are shifting. And, how you see that depends on which set of eyes you choose to use.
That's a perfect way of saying it. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect.
No,
That's
that's what
precisely.
my guides have said. I've had several people who call me up and they're moaning and groaning, and I'm going, okay, let's re-language what you just said. It's neurolinguistic programming, guys, part one. And we just need to take our language and put it into the positive. And I'm not saying I can't spread you with fairy dust. You have to find the fairy dust inside yourself.
Exactly.
And and it's and it is a season where we're passing um from the darkest, and it gets really dark. Just, you don't. It gets really dark in York.
It's dark, and well, we're turning the lights on at 3:30 in the afternoon
Yeah,
now. So we've
yeah.
got 10 days, haven't we, until the solstice? So and then it stands still, and then we're back to
Then you're back growing again. I
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And and that fascinates me because I live where we'd give anything to make the sun go away for 4 hours. It's like not our thing. But it's cold here. It's cold for us. This morning I woke up, it was in the upper 30s, and that's cold for us, you know.
Right, right. I work in Celsius, so that's I don't know what that is in Celsius.
Uh
That doesn't matter, does
it's
it really?
somewhere near freezing because
Oh, okay.
at 32 is freezing and yours 0 is
Oh,
freezing.
okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a little bit more. I trust me, my poor son, he I have a air fryer, and he said he didn't know, but he pushed the things wrong and it went to Celsius, and he had a rather
Oh,
interesting steak when it was done. Oh.
sounds
That's
like
when
the
he was.
way that I normally cook. Yeah, okay.
I remember when they were trying. I was in grade school when they were trying to switch us to Celsius, and my father, who was a doctor, said, he said, this country's just going to remain ignorant forever. He was a Canadian. He says it's just going to remain ignorant forever because they're going to do it their way, and the rest of the world's going to march on. And so we just say hot and cold, and that
Yeah,
seems to be enough.
yeah, yeah.
And I really do want to cut this a little short because I think, I will have Tim come back someday and show up at my on my show, and we'll talk some more about stuff he does absolutely fascinates me. And I've seen a lot of his work that he did of Hamish, which is all on YouTube. You can find it if you want to see it. And thank you. And here is your Lapis.
Thank you very
Pretty,
much.
pretty.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I hope everyone will come by again tomorrow and visit us. And thank you for taking time out of it's in the evening now, isn't it? Where you are?
It's yeah, half past 6 in the evening. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so he gave up his evening so you could see him this morning. So it's morning. And with that, goodbye. Thank you very much.